Well, welcome back, folks, to another episode of the Chroma Creative Podcast, where we talk about all kinds of things. We talk about cameras, we talk about production, we talk about creating content.
Art, life.
Art and life. What did we talk about last week?
We're a little behind on number 3.
What did we talk about in January?
It was January. January, we were talking about the conflicts of the metaphor that you brought to the table of master of one is the master of none, basically. And we kind of dove into that from both angles, I think.
Yeah, it was the full quote. It was something like a jack of all trades is a master of none, but often better than a master of one.
Yeah.
And we have a new topic that we'll get to in a minute. Before we do, I want to mention that we film these podcasts.
Yep.
And it's funny because I'm looking at a C70 just over my shoulder here. I'm able to monitor and see Jeremy sitting in his chair.
And I can see Jordy sitting in his chair at my C70.
It's pretty cool. So we have twin cameras sitting beside us as we chat. And we're trying a new format where we're sitting across from each other.
Exactly, which feels better already, I think.
It does to me, too.
We get twin lights. I mean, like, we got it going on this time. This feels like home.
No whiskey drink today.
That's sad.
I'm drinking Spindrift. Not sponsored. As if you thought we were. Sparkling water, real squeezed free. This stuff really is good.
I don't like sparkling water. I just got the regular water.
So
real basic.
It's been a productive day around the office today.
Extremely productive.
We're ramping up for a bunch of production. We're currently wrapping up a bunch of post-production. So a lot currently happening and a lot coming down the line. Trying to get our ducks in a row. We're really excited about our next podcast, which is going to be with a couple serial entrepreneurs that are good friends of ours, John and Megan Mills. They own the Cookie Crate. They owned and sold Mimi's Creamery, which was a multiple truck mobile ice cream shop. So good. So well branded.
Absolutely.
So well marketed. They are Instagram marketing geniuses, but they've also built other businesses without social media.
Sure.
So they've pivoted in a lot of ways.
But they are really good at social media. Like
incredibly good. And so we're going to have them on and talk about how they've leveraged specifically Instagram to grow their business.
I'm curious to hear their thoughts.
Yeah, me too. So as we mentioned, we're filming this podcast. If you'd prefer to watch it, but still have great audio, you can do that on the Chroma Creative YouTube channel, where you'll find other content as well that's obviously not on the podcast. Give us a follow on all the socials: TikTok, Instagram, Twitter,
Facebook.
Our topic for today is something that Jeremy and I have been discussing a lot around the office, partially because this feels like a trendy thing to say, and also because we find ourselves in the midst of asking some of the questions that we're going to talk about today.
All the time.
It's this idea of a camera being just simply a tool. Mm-hmm. And so really what we want to address or try and just discuss today is how true that is. Is a camera explicitly and exclusively about the result? Like, meaning, is it simply a means to an end? It is irrelevant, doesn't matter, is pointless to even discuss. Or does that tool have a role to play? Obviously, it has a role to play. You can't create it without the tool. But is it any more than that?
Agreed.
Just filling the box, filling the box of, now I have a tool to do the job.
Sure.
So does it have a role to play in the art of creating digital content? So I think a good place to start would be to just talk about what inspired us having some personal conversations. Personal in the sense that it's between you and I. It's not personal in that it's private.
Sure.
What inspired us talking about this type of thing here recently?
Well, that's a hard question because we're inspired often to have these types of conversations. So when I have to think back of like the one moment, who knows, to be honest. But I think recently what's really pushed us probably back in this conversation is the selling of the R5, primarily because it didn't inspire me to pick it up. It's for no fault of it is fantastic in every regard. but it was just a tool to me constantly, which a lot of people say, yeah, that's great. And it did what it's supposed to do. But at the end of the day, and it's not like I didn't enjoy it, but it's like there was no joy coming from it. Like it didn't, I was very neutral. Always grabbing a film camera, or I was always even grabbing the GFX, which is huge and medium format, and no sane person's probably carrying that thing around every day like I have been for 2 weeks. But it's just different, and it just felt fun and interesting. I don't know. So then it's just kind of got us looking back at some of the older cameras that we had that we were really inspired by, and then we've tried to dive in and digest what was inspiring about those machines and those cameras and those pieces. So I think that's kind of where we started.
Yeah.
This train of thought.
No, I think it is. I think if I have an earliest memory of this conversation, it was the GFX that did it, because it became a question about format.
Sure.
Medium format, full frame, or APS-C.
Age-old argument.
I think there's lots of valuable reasons to have this conversation. And in the midst of talking about those formats, one of the things that I talked to you about is that so often I can't sleep. Mm-hmm. And it's actually getting significantly better. Which I'm glad. Yeah, me too. But when I can't sleep, I end up looking for, I'm really intrigued by people who are the best in the world at a certain thing. Sure. Or who have records in certain avenues, or the best of fill in the blank. Mm-hmm. And so I got curious, and I think I Googled most awarded or most revered photos of all time.
Okay.
And if you don't know, obviously we run a video production company. We run a content creation company where we create video and photo content, mm-hmm. but Jeremy and I both create photo work for our fun, just for art for us, for no other reason.
Yep.
And so a lot of my downtime, in the middle of the night when I can't sleep, is filled by photography type stuff. I searched most revered or most popular photos of all time. If you remember what I told you, my takeaway is well, first of all, none of them mentioned what camera
exactly
it was taken with, right? And all of the photos that we as human beings appreciate, they all pegged the meter on a story. Mm-hmm. And I know it's story is the new cinematic.
Sure.
Story is it's a hot word. It almost hurts people.
It's
I think.
trendy.
It's a trendy word right now. To experience or discuss story is to experience or discuss humanity.
Absolutely.
That's where we started. All these pictures, and I encourage you to go do it. Go Google most famous photos of all time.
Sure.
They're in the midst of unbelievably powerful stories, and a human being with a digital box that's able to capture a moment
or film.
That's right. A lot of them were filmed.
Mm-hmm.
Happened to be there
mm-hmm.
and snap the moment, right? In that sense,
which is a good segue.
What's the segue?
I mean, they were there. They had the camera on their possession.
Yeah. So there's two angles to look at it, like most things.
That's what we do.
One angle is man, who cares what the camera was? No one's talking about the camera.
Exactly.
Agreed, fully.
Sure.
And if I'm honest, I wonder, but I'm more inspired by the photo. I'm holy cow, that's incredible.
But that's global. The inspiration, that feeling that you get, that's meant for everybody.
Totally.
But then there's that certain lane of creatives and people who are just curious about more than what made the photo.
Sure.
And
what you said, more importantly, would the photographer had been there
absolutely.
Had he not been inspired to pick up that box mm-hmm. and go out and take a photo.
Exactly.
And as we've mentioned before, there's certainly value in going and making art.
Period.
If you don't feel if you're not inspired.
Actually, I would even say more so if
sure.
you're not inspired, because then you're going to push yourself in the uncomfortable a little bit, because you're already uncomfortable because you don't have a vision, and it makes you look at things a little differently.
Totally agree with that. Fun little rabbit trail here. There's a book on this topic called, it's not The Art of War, it's a play on those words, The War of Art. And it's talking about and discussing the value of the discipline of being artistic. Mm-hmm. I started the book in a sauna, at the gym, and it melted in my hands.
Sure.
So it literally came unglued, much like I do in the sauna.
No doubt. Oh man, which is funny. I mean, and I probably could reference it too, but I just finished a book as well for the second time, The Soul of the Camera. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, The Soul of the Camera. Yeah, by David Dushman. He's a photographer, travels the world, fantastic author. He's authored many books, and he has a podcast, and he has a weekly newsletter. But it's like every now and then, like a quote would hit me, and I would immediately like screenshot it, send it to Jordy, or send it to Jordy and Lindsay, and like, I don't know. It's like, it's one of those things. Like it's so much more than just the box. It's like, what does that box inspire you to do, and like, how does that box how do you connect with it? I guess is probably a better way, because like you and I've done this for a long time. I have zero doubt that I could give you any camera, and you're going to make something incredible with it. It may not be what you wanted to make, but like, you won't not create something with that just because it's not what you wanted it to be, which I think is inspiring too. There's I don't even know if they do it anymore, but there used to be a crappy camera, we'll say, challenge, like on YouTube.
Oh yeah,
where they would give people the worst cameras.
I've seen them with film point and shoots.
Yeah, just see what you can do with it, And I always thought that was very interesting, because what can you do if you don't have the newest and the best?
Totally.
And a lot of people are doing a lot of incredible things without those things.
Totally. There was one quote you shared with me from that book that was something, is basically getting at the fact that we have this expectation of mastering the craft of photography when we can't even master a camera.
Absolutely.
Like, we can't keep one camera long enough to even master it, much less the wide world of photography.
I'm very guilty of that too, which I think is another reason that we had this conversation, because that kind of led us deeper in the office. Is just like, what does it look like to have a camera for a long time? And like, what would you want that to be? Like, even if it doesn't exist,
sure.
Like, what would you want from that? And then that makes you step back and look at things a little differently, I guess.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have to be the newest thing.
And it comes down to, I want to be the guy who has one in my hand.
Absolutely.
When the story unfolds.
Absolutely.
And whether that's the story of my children, or something interesting happening at the ale house down the road, like whatever, I want to be inspired enough by the box to have it with me when the thing happens. And the unfortunate reality, love me or hate me, like it or hate it, I am fickle enough, if that's a word.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
That if I'm not inspired by the camera, I'm not going to take it. I'm not going to pick it up.
Same.
And that's so, yeah. Circling back here, we both felt that way about the R5. I had an R5 at one point. You had an R5. You had, like, with the R5, Jeremy had the 51.2, unbelievably capable rig. Like, no
more
one,
so than I am.
That's 100% more so than me. But unbelievably capable setup to capture anything you could want to capture, from portraits to landscape, like whatever.
Really anything.
Obviously, 50 is not ideal for landscape, but you could do it.
Oh, absolutely.
But you often had your Nikon F3 film camera that you bought cheap on.
Yeah, around my neck.
Yeah, that's the one you had with you. And and so then Jeremy and I are similar in that we start doing math. We're like, golly, I could buy.
Exactly.
That's a lot of money sitting there, But yeah, the GFX and the R5, and then it's like, well, can people even tell the difference in medium format and digital? And then I think where we both ended up is like, does it matter?
It doesn't. Absolutely.
And when we say what does it matter, I think what I'm saying is, if I prefer using the GFX, that's what I'm going to use, whether they can see the difference or not.
Whether I can see a difference or not.
Totally.
Honestly, it's like, at the end of the day, I mean, I know we beat this to death as well, but like, people compare megapixels to megapixels and computers, and it's like, yeah, if you're just looking at it on Instagram, it really doesn't matter. But it's like, I love the thought of printing.
Sure.
I was lucky enough
and
recently.
You've had clients print your work.
Absolutely, yeah, luckily. And even big, my friend Brandon, he has printed some massive metal frames and some acrylic stuff of my work, and that's really a blessing in itself. It's like, it's cool to see your stuff that big, and I don't think photographers or creatives in general give themselves that feedback enough. Like, I think we need to print more, and I do feel like maybe printing we would see a difference, but at the same time, it's like, it doesn't matter if the R5 is a better print, a better photo, in every way. If I don't want to pick it up,
doesn't matter.
It's useless.
You're gonna have a memory of the story.
Yeah,
but no photo.
Exactly.
Unless you take one with your phone. Completely different conversation.
Completely.
But what's that documentary you suggested I watched that I did? The guy who shoots portraits on Hasselblad.
Oh my gosh, I'll never think of the name of the documentary, but his name is oh my gosh, Platon.
There's a series of documentaries in that. It's a series of documentaries that one is one of them.
Yeah, it's like Chasing the Light or something, I think, on Netflix.
And there's another one called Abstract. There's a few of them.
Yeah,
that are part of that series. But if you search Platon,
yeah, I think it's like
Netflix,
Platon.
You'll likely find it. He's a portrait photographer who's photographed like all kinds.
Everybody.
Yeah,
presidents, dictators. Like, I mean,
what made me think of it is that a big part of his process is, of course, he takes a bunch of photos,
sure,
all on film,
and
then what's it called? If you like, is it culling? Like he picks a few that he likes, and then they print them.
Huge,
like 10 feet tall.
Yes,
and that's
massive.
His like, which one do I like?
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's just backing up your point of like that's a way of getting feedback from your work.
Sure.
That we never do.
Absolutely.
And so, I think the reason we felt like having this conversation was A, because we've been having it,
sure.
But B, because I keep hearing people say things that I think I agree with at my core, but they just feel wrong.
Sure.
Recently watched a Peter McKinnon YouTube video, unbelievably well produced.
Always.
Like, it's basically like a short doc where he goes and spends a day with a photographer and interviewed him. And it was an R5C video, but it was awesome because it was like, I think the title was like, I don't want to talk about I don't want to talk about
cameras at all today. Yeah.
And it's this photographer who, again, is wildly popular. One of the pieces of work of his that I recognized was the Schitt's Creek photos, because we love the show.
It's fantastic.
And he has a vibe. He has a look. Like, he definitely has a thing. It's almost like painty, like glossy. It's interesting. But that in the midst of that short doc, that guy like said blatantly, he was like, I don't give a shit about cameras.
Yes, he does not.
And like, I believed him.
I did too.
Like, I really feel like after saying that, he followed that up by saying, I'd rather talk about like wardrobe, and he's like, I could spend days talking about like the material of a jacket. I think I'm obviously, the quote isn't exact, but
sure. But that is where he was leaning, though, for sure. He's very much into his fashion. I think he had some cool watches, I think, as well, maybe or something. But like, he had a lot of like interesting stuff.
Well, and he was, I think, like, so there's this whole world that he's more interested in. So I just picture, like, for him, he shows up on set, he's like obsessing over the fabric of a coat of his subject.
Sure.
The camera's like in the bag still.
Yeah.
And I just imagine at some point he goes and grabs out some old janky like whatever camera, snaps the photo, and is like, that's what he enjoys.
Sure. He just goes to work.
Yeah. And I think in that setting, I agree. Like, he is something we were talking about. It's like, is it possible that you can simultaneously serve the master of the result? Like, I'm serving the result, or I'm serving the process.
Yep.
And I think what we agreed on is that both can happen.
I think so.
Simultaneously. We'll get into that. But another super popular YouTuber, Casey Neistat, has been quoted multiple times, like often in reference to how like bad he is about breaking his gear.
Yes.
People will say like, why aren't you easier? Like, why are you so rough on your gear? And he'll say like, it's because I just don't care.
Stuff,
It's just a tool.
Exactly.
And so how does that stuff hit you when you hear folks say, because it's everywhere?
I mean, it's conflicting a little bit, but I do get it at the same time. Because I find myself in that same situation pretty regularly. Even if I feel like we just kind of step back, like, I love to shoot film, and like my dream film camera was to own a Leica M6 forever. And luckily, as you know, I had the privilege of having one for a while, but then I was afraid to use it.
Yeah.
Cause like, it's so nice, and it wasn't fragile. I mean, it's so well made, but like, I was terrified to take it out of the house, I mean, I did, but like very sparingly, which just made me anxious. It's like, well, I mean, here's this thing that I adore that just needs to be on a shelf. And like anybody who knows me, that is not my personality. If I'm into something, I want to use it. Knives, cameras, whatever it is. Like, I don't want something just collecting dust. I want to be able to use it and enjoy it, or I don't want to have it. Like, I'm not a hoarder. Like, I could live simple pretty quick. And that's what, you'd mentioned the F3 earlier. Like, it's a fraction of the cost, probably of any film camera that I own. But for whatever reason, I can't put it down. I haven't even developed a single frame from it yet. But I trust it.
It may not even work.
It may not. Yeah,
it may have light leaks. And
I'm sure.
Be
probably.
a disaster.
But I'm loving it. Like, I can't. I mean, that's a video in itself, probably, or a podcast. Like, wow, I like this little camera. But it just makes me want to take it with me. It's not in. It's never in the way. It's just handy to have, and it's fun. Like it reverts.
So there's something about that, the process, and I think that's ultimately what we're talking about. The tools are nothing without a human being to interact with.
Absolutely.
Them. And so the tool combined with the human being and the interaction they have is the process of making the image or the video, whatever. And so being inspired to start that process.
Sure.
And so let's talk a bit about the idea of is it wrong? Like, say you have two people. Person A is the guy in the Peter McKinnon short doc. He just genuinely doesn't care about the camera. It's simply a tool that serves a purpose. He could use another one tomorrow and it wouldn't make a difference to him. It's just a tool. Then you have person B who cares about the result. Who knows how much, but they heavily rely on the process to get them to a place where they're happy with the result.
Sure.
Or to get the result at all. I'm a metaphor guy. So one of my metaphors for this idea of process versus result was driving. So imagine it's like a summer evening. It's like 7. So in our part of the world, 7:30 p.m. is like sun's starting to go down, but it's still daylight. And it's still nice and warm.
But it's cooling off a little bit.
Starting to cool off, no direct sunlight. And imagine it's like, I'm going to go grab dinner across town. Sure. Maybe it's a 15-minute drive, 20-minute drive. And so for me, it's like, imagine there's 4 ways to get there. There's like, take the bus. There's take the family van. There's take the like convertible sports car. There's take the motorcycle.
Okay.
Right? I'm not saying I have any of those things. I'm just saying, imagine there's 4 ways to get there.
Whatever your 4 ways are. Yeah.
Walking even.
Sure.
Like there's multiple ways to get to the location, right? I think some people are just the type of people that are like, I don't care.
Exactly.
I just want to get there. It's about eating. I'm hungry.
Exactly.
I don't care about getting there.
It's about the result.
Yeah. They're not wrong for being that way.
Absolutely not.
I think some people don't need any particular version, any of the 4 things to be complete or to get there. They're not going to be like, well, I'm not going to go eat if I can't take the bus. I'm not going to go eat if I can't take the motorcycle.
I can't walk, I'm out.
It's not about I'm not willing to make the result. Not even that. It's not about I'm not excited about it. They're just as hungry.
Yeah, the result's the same.
The result is the same. For me, like so if I put myself in the metaphor, like if I'm on, the bus is a bad example because I could see myself vibing on a bus. Like,
same.
Like AirPods and podcast and having a minute to myself. But let's take the family van. I'm not talking like your family's not in it.
Yeah.
I'm saying like it's empty. It's got all the trash from
Is it empty?
No, it isn't empty. It's got a certain smell. It's got trash in the floor. Like there's clothes everywhere.
Describe the smell.
I'm not describing the smell. It's like hasn't been washed in a while, and you drive, you get there.
Sure.
Right? For me, if that's me, it's like I'm not negatively impacted. It's like I just drove. It's somebody was like, "What'd you drive here?" I'm like, I think I drove the van. I don't even really remember.
Didn't put much thought into how I got here.
But you put me on like some old motorcycle, and like illegal or not, I've got one AirPod in, and like Tame Impala's jamming, and the lighting's just right and the breeze is just right. Like I'm in a different headspace.
It's a transformative difference.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's no longer, like I may even take the long way.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like I'm enjoying the process of getting there so much that I'm like relishing. Is that the word?
Yeah. Yeah. You still want to get there. You still want the same result.
Still want the same result.
You just want to get there a little differently.
Yeah. And there have been times in my life where like it's not food. So food's like necessary, right?
Now I'm starving.
Maybe the destination isn't optional.
Okay.
So it's like, do you want to go?
Okay.
Sometimes for me, it's like, well, I could take the bike. I don't have a motorcycle at the moment, for
either,
the record.
sadly.
But it's like, I could take the motorcycle. I'm going.
Oh, yeah.
Versus like, bike's not running, take the bus or take the van or whatever. I may not go.
Yeah, I'm going to start debating.
So exactly. To me, the metaphor, just that metaphor, hopefully helps you see the way that I think Jeremy and I think about the process. It's like, of course, the bus is going to get you there the same way. The bus, for the record, is the 5D Mark IV. We all know it.
Oh, for sure.
The bus is a 5D Mark IV.
Or any DSLR.
Any DSLR on planet Earth. And then we all know that the motorcycle is like an M10 or an M11 now.
Oh gosh, yeah. At least in mine and your opinion, the Leica universe probably.
For the record, neither of us have ever owned an M10 or M11.
No, or an M8 or an M9.
M240s. We both had 240s.
And we both had the M6.
Yes, we did.
And we both had the M3s.
Yes, we did. Mine, I never even took a photo of mine because it came broken. Here's the funny thing about that metaphor. If the bus is the 5D Mark IV, any DSLR on the planet, often I'll see a photo and I'm like, what made that photo?
1,000%.
It's like a D850.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
exactly.
Oh, man.
I mean, don't get me wrong. People still make incredible work with the 5D Classic.
Absolutely. People, 100%. There are photographers who every photo they take with their phone is better than any photo I could ever take with.
Sadly.
Yeah, I mean, how's that hit you?
I mean, it hurts because, I mean, my history or my background is primarily stills. It's like having to come to that realization. And I feel like getting older, which sucks, but it is what it is. I do find myself like I still enjoy the gear and I still enjoy like learning. Of course, I think you and I have this in common. Like I want to learn about everything. If it's new, I want to know about it. I don't have to have it, but I'm still curious about it. But then like it puts me in different headspaces. Like I don't have to have, because the R3 came out recently, and you and I talked about it. I was like, I think I'd love to have that camera. But then I got thinking, like recently in the last couple weeks, like it's huge. Like all the things I enjoy about a camera is the opposite of the R3 probably. Like I don't run grips typically. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I'm the type of person, like I carry my bag or a backpack or something almost everywhere I go, but like my film camera's around my neck. It's tiny. It doesn't take up much space. And I think when I started shooting film is when my shift in like perspective changed a little bit. Because at that point it's like, it's all digital and like that digital is outdated. So you got to have the new digital, you know? But then it's like when I started shooting films, like I'm still shooting stuff from 30, 40, 50 years ago. It's like, and it's fun and it's fantastic.
Sure.
Like, why do I have to have the $12,000 option that you just released, you know?
Sure. I think that sheds light on another sort of side to this conversation that we've been having too, is like there's technically right, and then there's like what you're trying to create.
Absolutely.
And that came up with the 51.2, the RF 51.2. What is that, a $3,000 lens new?
$2,499.
$2,500 lens
yeah.
new. And we've had a Fuji X Pro body in our hands with $100 50 f1.2.
It's crazy.
And we often like the images that setup makes.
But why do we like that better?
So, and that's what I'm getting at, is for me, the other side of it is the result should influence the tool, obviously.
Absolutely.
Right? Like you don't take a crescent wrench to drive a nail unless you're me.
Screwdriver for a hammer.
Yeah. Or you're going to take a hammer, right? But when it's cameras take photos.
Sure.
You know, like when there's so many available, I think we have to think, what do I want to make?
Exactly.
And some of that's technical. Some of it's artistic. So like, for example, technically, if I want to make an image with extremely shallow depth of field, but at a wide field of view, you should be looking at medium format. You can't. It's not that you can only do it with medium format.
No.
But medium format is the way to go if that's the work you're trying to create.
Sure.
If you want like crazy resolving power landscapes, like 4x5 film is going to give you, like, if you want to print a landscape,
absolutely,
that should influence, like. And now again, it's not that you can't make a landscape photo on your phone.
Absolutely.
It's just if you're thinking intentionally about the tool, the result should influence it.
Yep.
That's the technical side of it.
Sure.
Then there's the, like, what makes me happy? Like, when I look at a photo, what about photos make me happy? Some people, clinical sharpness, zero chromatic aberration.
No distortion.
Like perfectly round bokeh balls. Like, those are the things that some people, when they see it, they're like, this is it. And again, they're not wrong. They're not less artistic.
No.
Like, maybe from their perspective, it's like those things get in the way of the story.
Sure.
And I'm trying to get completely out of the way. What would you say? So if that's pegging the meter on one side, I think you're probably pegging the meter on the other side. What's that look like?
Character.
What do you mean?
Well, so I think shooting. I'll try to summarize this. So shooting film is not perfect. There's grain, there's dust, there's light leaks sometimes. But it's in those imperfections, I think, that sometimes the story can be found. Like, it's not just a really nice photo. It's like something else is going on. There's something else here. And like, even with the R5, with probably the best 50 millimeter, maybe other than a Leica, that you can buy.
Sure.
I mean,
I don't think many people would argue that.
I don't think so either. And I mean, and once again, it's all personal. It's all opinionated. But I would often take the R5 and the 50 off and grab M mount Voigtlander 50 or 40 mil instead and put on there, just because
no autofocus.
No autofocus, yeah, because
sort of ugly setup.
Yeah, tiny. It looked awful. But it had character. Like, it was busier in the background. Like, the bokeh wasn't round. But it for whatever reason, that made me much more connected to the moment, because I feel like that's almost the way I see it. It's
sure.
Because life is messy.
Sure.
Like, I don't want it to be clinically perfect, because, like, I feel like that's a fairy tale that we do not live in. But it's like, it also brings my attention back to the thing that I want it to be on. If all this is busy and not happening, like, that's not where my attention goes.
Sure.
It's like, but it's where the light's hitting.
Yeah.
You know, like, the other stuff's cool, but and you can do that with the 51 too, for sure. But it's just so smooth, and it's like, it's too polished.
Yeah.
If for me,
yeah.
like, I guess is the best way to put that.
And I think that ultimately the work you want to make, a couple things. One, it comes from a combination of places. I think it comes from things that inspire you, or artists, other photographers, or
Absolutely.
whatever, that inspire you when you've seen a photo and be like, that's it. I don't know why. I don't know what specifically it is about it. And then you spend the rest of your life unwrapping the things about that you liked, and implementing them into your work. So it can be that photo that inspired us early on, but it's just part of what's in us, right? It's our life experience. It's the way we see the world.
Sure.
And that inspires us, and that motivates us towards the result. But again, ultimately, if we identify, what do I want to make, and what do I feel like I have to make it? There's the technical side of it, and then there's the, like, now, will I use it? Like,
exactly.
Will I pick it up and implement it? And the other side of that is, sometimes you're lucky enough, blessed enough, to make art for your preference, that you're inspired by, that other people appreciate enough to buy.
Absolutely.
And what a place to be. Often, you have to make their thing, and in a way that makes them happy, content, whatever.
Sure.
I'm talking about clients.
Absolutely.
And so a lot of times, it's not quite as lovely.
Yeah, agreed.
You just are making a photo.
Sure.
And we often have conversations before a shoot that involves photography, when, like, because I know we make very different photos, and so, but on top of that, I know that neither of the things that we make are what the client needs. For example, we recently shot this was like $100,000 custom truck from some clients of ours that they were selling. So we shot a couple Bring a Trailer ads, and then with Bring a Trailer, you need like hundreds of high-end photos.
That's crazy.
But I knew that like what they wanted and would need was like very clinical, like symmetrical.
Yep.
You know, like documenting the vehicle.
Non-artistic is what you're trying to say.
We even said that.
Yeah,
like,
we did.
Watch your, like, let's go F4.
Yeah, what's your depth of field here? Yeah.
And some people are probably like, F4?
Yeah, for
F11?
Exactly. I shot some F11 stuff.
Right. Sometimes, but man, I think we often can use the things that we've learned as we've been inspired to pick up the box, go make work with it. To make work for our clients.
Yep.
And and obviously they called you for some reason.
Absolutely.
Like you got the call for something, and now he might have gotten the call based on a photo they saw of you making someone else happy, but still maybe that gig gets you to a place where you're able to swing the tool that inspires you to go capture the story.
Absolutely. And I think that's a fine line. And actually two things you said there really caught my attention. I love the fact that you say make a photo instead of take a photo. Because someone had talked about that years ago, and it really stuck with me. It's like taking a photo. You're literally just taking something from someone.
It's a
their time,
consumer
their
mentality.
Moment. Yeah, but to make is like you're collectively making this thing. And it was a street photographer, and he would ask me, he was like, "Can I make this? Can I make your photo?" People were like, "Make my photo." He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "I don't want to take your photo. I don't want to take it from you. I want to give it back to you."
I think paparazzi take photos.
Yeah,
they're
absolutely.
like they need something from you.
Sure.
And so they're coming to get it, whether you like it or not.
And I like that experience a little bit too, because like that's very overwhelming to me. Like that puts me in an uncomfortable place to go out and like take random candidates. I mean, you and I've talked about this sometimes, but it's also a learning experience. Like it makes me do things I don't want to do. I mean, last night Alex and I were having dinner, and I would literally be facing him with my camera, shooting over his shoulder to the guy sitting behind him. That was just interesting. It's odd, but I'm not going to like blast it all over social. It's just a learning experience.
I would categorize that as street photography.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what street photography does for my brain is I'm always so terrified of like staring at people.
Sure.
That I intentionally don't. Like I look at my feet when I'm walking on the street or like at the buildings, whatever. Street photography, it's something as simple as like a woman crossing the road in a beautiful ray of light.
Sure.
And there's a crosswalk there, right? That's a cool shot, but for me, I'm like, I can analyze it without fear of like someone being like, "What are you staring at?"
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like I can like wonder where she's headed, like where she came from, like what she's thinking about. And
Story.
It takes you a place you can't. It's so crazy that photo has the potential to take me to a place I couldn't go if I was actually there.
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
And I think that's the beauty of photography in general, or art in any form. I mean, paintings, music, like videos, like I'm sure some human nature, some baseline level, like it's these things we want to experience. And if we can't, we still can on some level through these mediums.
Sure.
And I think that's partly why we're so drawn to them.
Sure. To tie this back into our work, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of this conversation is based on passion and like what we do in our free time. But to tie it back into what we do for a living, we often, some of you probably listening to this right now, our friends who are creators in our area, we sort of get made fun of. It's like, what camera system are you using this week? I'm not talking about fun stuff. I'm talking about like our work setup.
Very much.
And we've talked about that on a previous episode where we came from, where we are. And, a lot of it for me is I just lose the inspiration. Now, again, we still got to go make the work. We still have to go do it.
Sure.
But I have found that if I'm inspired by the tool, I make better work.
I agree.
And so imagine your carpenter, like imagine he does his best work when he's spent the night prior researching his table saw.
Sure.
Or I don't know anything about carpentry.
On the
like
market.
It's like he can't wait to get on the job site and experiment and explore and then you're going to walk in as a result and be like, this is why we hired you.
Exactly.
Because you do. Now, if all that inspires you is a box with electronics in it, that will die.
You're missing out.
I've just found that it's one of the things for me that when we show up on set, it helps me go the extra mile.
Absolutely.
And because to be honest, I've known folks who like, they just got the same. It's like they've had the one case forever. It's never opened unless they're on the job, and they put it away when the job's done, and they don't show their friends that work. And it's just, I think for us, man, a lot of times I'll send clips to friends, be like, look at this.
Oh, yeah.
Can you believe this? Even if it's something as simple as like we competed with the sun with this light, and we exposed for the window, and we did it.
Yeah.
How often, like the carpenter that's not thinking that way, is he ever gonna like text his buddy a shot of like something he framed?
Look, just miter joint.
And I'm talking about like maybe like architecture, like
Sure.
like just beautiful architecture, and he's so inspired that like he sends it to like his buddies, and it's like, I couldn't have done this 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Like I was inspired to learn, and just honestly had this new thing that inspired me to learn.
Yeah.
And now I'm here. Maybe the carpenter thing's a dumb example, but I think you get where I'm going.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we strip it down to that, it's like a camera or a hammer in these situations, like are tools for the job.
Yeah.
Now, whether they inspire you to do the job differently or not depends on the tool and the person using said tool.
Totally.
Like, I know you and I both are very much rangefinder camera guys. I think we get inspiration from that. I think that we enjoy that process. Like, it's just a different mindset, like completely. And that doesn't mean that you can't pick up the latest Nikon camera that we don't shoot and make great stuff with it.
Right.
But it's like, but it doesn't mean that you are excited
Sure.
to do it. And I think that's the difference. I think there's a difference in being excited to pick it up and being able to pick it up.
Yeah,
and
knowing
make
that you
something.
need to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I mean, I'm very grateful that we can use whatever we have to make it work.
Totally.
All the time. I mean, we had to reach for a GoPro the other day for
Totally.
a third angle, but like, yeah, it worked.
It was overhead.
Yeah, it was just over.
In case
Yeah,
everyone's
yeah.
wondering. What? No, that's it. And I love those, like the full-time filmmaker guys do these like pro with a cheap camera versus beginner with like the most expensive setup ever. And hands down, every time the guy with experience and garbage camera is gonna do a better job.
Yeah, I've agreed.
It's not that you need, and I don't think we've ever said you need this to make your thing.
No, we have not.
It's the journey. It's the process of making the thing. And I'll end with this. In that example, professional, cheap camera, beginner, incredibly expensive camera. I think that the professional with the professional camera package in his hand is going to make a significantly better result than he's going to make with the cheap camera in his hand.
Sure.
Now, I don't think that that's just because the other camera is more capable.
Agreed.
I think it's because he gets there differently with that tool in his hand. And that's the point. It's about the process. And for me, and I think Jeremy would agree, the process matters.
Absolutely.
And it matters so much that if the tool doesn't inspire you to begin the process at all, where do you end up?
Exactly. And like, and honestly, I was looking through my phone. I wanted to find that one quote that I sent you and Lindsay recently from that book. And I'll go real quick because like it just, I don't know. But it says, the biblical story of creation of humanity was the creator making man from clay and then breathing his own life into him. And it said of a man that we were made in his image of the creator. I find that symbolism striking and relevant. In our work to be human, it's our task as creators to breathe life into it. Inspiration, literally to inhale, is everything we do to draw our deepest breath from the world around us. All we love and admire, all we care about and want to protect, everything that lights our fire. But it's the act of exhaling into our work that makes it ours, gives it life, spark to what we make. And like, I think ultimately what that means for me is like, it could be any camera, but like, if there's not something about it that I connect with, whether that's physically or mentally or emotionally, then at the end of the day, it's just work. It's just another photo. Like when you find that piece, whatever that is, that tool, that whatever your lane is, like it just, I don't want to say hits different, but like it's automatic, and you know it's there. It's almost electrifying. It's like you miss it when it's not there. You know, like, I mean, even the 240, it wasn't my favorite camera I ever had, but the second it was gone, I was like, I kind of wish I had that camera again. You know, but because there was something about it, and like at the time I didn't appreciate it, and like, which is part of the game, I guess.
No, it
always
is.
Want something new.
I think some of it's even flow state. Like some stuff, like it just gets in your way.
Yeah.
Like you just find yourself like fiddling more than you do anything else. Yeah. And, you know, I think about other disciplines listening to a podcast like this, and it's like, you take audio engineers, it's like without a certain preamp or compressor, I'm not inspired to make it sound, you know, I think you could take this from any angle, but hopefully the point that we're trying to make comes across. And I think ultimately what it is that we would encourage folks not to shy away from leaning into the things that inspire them.
Absolutely.
Whatever they are.
Absolutely.
When you're a creator, and I think we're all creators. Like
absolutely.
What you just the verse that quote just referenced is that we create because we were made in the image of our creator.
Absolutely.
And as creators, unfortunately we're finicky enough that we just need to be inspired sometimes.
Sure.
And so for me, like, just don't shy away from leaning into the things that inspire you. For example, I've known musicians my whole life that, like, I'm a drummer, but I'm going to play guitar for a minute. And it's like, they look at music differently.
Sure.
As a guitar player versus a drummer, like, and some people might say, you're a drummer. What are you doing? And it's like, I'm inspired by playing guitar right now.
Yeah,
I'm going to do that, you know, whatever it is. But yeah, obviously we could talk about this stuff.
Yeah, we could talk about finding inspiration all day as well.
Oh, 100%. And man, the weather can be as inspiring
1,000.
as the tool. You know, like,
I literally looked out the window and told you earlier, I was like, the clouds in the sky look so cool today. It's like, what?
It is. We're either very observant or very easily
amused,
inspired, and entertained.
Absolutely.
But yeah, you know, I think again, this podcast for us is just a place to flesh out some of the things that we wrestle with. And wrestle's a dumb word because we're not like really struggling to think through this. It's like,
I don't know what to do.
These are the conversations we have when we're exporting projects.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
hey, good morning. How are you?
Yeah.
What'd you think about this morning?
Exactly. And we often like, I have valuable takeaways
every time
from them, and some of which are just because I explored it, you know, in
openly.
my own mind. Yeah, openly. And like Michael Scott would say, sometimes I start talking and I don't know what I'm going to say till I get to the end of it. Exactly. And sometimes because you've given me perspective that I didn't have, you know, and like knowledge that I didn't have.
Sure.
Like guys like you're quoting that have been taking photos longer than I've been alive and hearing it from their perspective.
Exactly.
Too. So yeah, it's definitely not a place for, it's funny because Chroma Creative is a content creation company. I'm seeing a trend of like, don't make content. I think I get the mindset behind that. Ultimately, we are people who, that's what we do. We make digital content both for ourselves and for our clients. And to me, this fits right in that pocket.
Absolutely.
And talking about how and why we get there.
Yeah. So, I mean, don't be inspired by the newest camera.
100%.
Like, why are you inspired? And I think that can null some of that for you.
And if you find something that does get you inspired to go make the work that you want to make, don't shy away from it.
Lean into it.
And if everyone else is saying it's dumb that inspires you, who cares?
Exactly.
Just go.
Thanks
for listening. Check back with us in the next little bit when we have the Mills on the podcast. Super excited about that. Give us a follow on all the accounts, and see y'all soon.
See you then.